Feeling the hype! Hype, guys. Silksong, is this finally coming out? I mean, of course. Like Hollow Knight, one of my all-time favorite games. Just love going around and getting your blade out, slashing demons, you know what I mean? It is an amazing game, right? I don't think I have to really hype it up much more than I can. It is one of the best games ever made. I will say overall that I really love, you know, the Metroidvania games. Like the first game that I actually ever made in college, I started as a game developer like, you know, degree, whatever, was, of course, a Metroidvania game. Who could imagine, right? So we made a game kind of inspired by, like, Mega Man / Castlevania, Symphony Night, and also, of course, Metroid. Right? This is like 2000, early 2000, guys, so this is way back, okay? So I worked on a few since then, right? Platform games, Metroidvania games, and yeah, this, what can I say? This keeps being like one of my all-time favorite genres, and I think that, of course, Hollow Knight is one of the best games ever made, right? Particularly, especially in, of course, the Metroidvania genre. Now, we're here, right, because we finally have this Silksong release trailer. Silksong, of course, if you don't know the backstory, is that it's been in, I don't want to say development hell, but it kind of feels like it's been in development hell for a very long time, right? So, I don't know exactly, right? I don't know if these guys working here. There are, you know, sharers in the developer. But obviously I know a lot of different, you know, game developers across the globe. And it is unfortunately very common to get into development hell, I guess. But I have to say, though, in my experience and people I know, it doesn't happen that often, actually, when you are few, right? Usually it's when you get bloated, the more people you hire, the worse it gets and so on, right? They are kind of a tiny company, so you wouldn't expect it to happen that much. But I think that, I just want to guess here before we get into the trailer, this is my professional guess, I'm being all serious now, but seriously, I think that the problem they have is that people really love Hollow Knight, right? So they felt that they needed to make an absolute 10 out of 10 perfect game, right? That is great, of course. I think that most companies today, especially AAA, Ubisoft, whatever, right? They just push out whatever they can, right? Oh, just print money, whatever, right? And then they tend to make terrible games. So it is good that they are like, okay, we have to make perfect game because everyone loved our first game. But I also think that they probably could release this game probably a year ago, right? And it would be like an amazing game. So who knows? It feels a little bit like it's always maybe isn't the best to just keep going, you know, forever with your one project, right? Sometimes it's better to kind of release a game in parts or whatever. Right? I don't know. I digress. But it feels interesting to me that would be my guess. There are so much perfectionists that you just kept making it over and over again. But I'm finally here. Anyway, just a trailer, guys. But I am excited. I mean, it is one of my all-time favorite games. Let's go. Here we go. Team Cherry. It's too loud, maybe? It's very loud, right? Okay, here we go. Team Cherry. Finally. It looks almost kind of similar. We're gonna break it down like that word. I'll break it down, but yeah, then we have. I mean, of course, you're gonna work similar. You're gonna find if it depends on, you know, yeah, of course. Playing as Silk, that's that. Obviously, you know, a character from the first game that you haven't played it, but I don't think you probably don't need to have played the first place game. I would very much doubt that. You could probably play this game before the other game. The classic map, of course. Boss fight. Yeah, this is a classic game. Bunching on the bosses and so on, yeah. I just have a Castlevania thing there, the climb and swing and so on. Oof, this looks, oh, that's terrible. I'm not a big fan of those stages, you know. You have to run from a lava thing. Classic Snes games. Yeah, it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. It looks amazing. It looks amazing. Yeah, okay, 2 are different enemies. I guess that's right. They're probably not bosses, right? There's like 2 different, 40 bosses, yeah, okay, 4 different bosses. Maybe some unique, like remakes, but that was really cool, the Kirby thing. Well, that could be a problem with later bosses. Oh, nice, you get a kind of mount there. That is probably actually a temptation wise, yeah, it's probably like you probably just unlock a way to transport, right? Well, that is like a hard boss actually. This is probably a hard boss, yeah, that boss there is like a kind of fight. Okay, it's a lot to break down there, I got a lot to break down there, many happenings. A lot of things happening in this trailer. and it says September, but 4. Is that true? Is that true? You're like, I don't trust you. Like, you claim that Silksong is coming out September 4. You know, you see this thing, you're like, well. I hope it's true. It is probably true if I write it. But unless I can buy it and get it done on my Steam account or whatever, you know, for September, I don't trust you guys. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know about that. So first of all, there are bosses, right? There are 40 bosses. I do wonder what you mean exactly with legendary bosses. Maybe it doesn't matter, but it's like, you know, so in some games, for example, Magic the Gathering, I have a lot of Magic cards on my table here, right? In Magic, legendary is a specific type of other card, right? Usually, for example, like Cloud, right? He's like a legendary card, right? And you can only have one legendary of the same name, whatever. So, but I think that's just like a cool way to write it. There's a 4 legendary bosses. I still think that the game might have more for the bosses though. I think that usually when you have this in a promo, it means like, you know, 40 unique bosses. If I give them the benefit of the doubt, right, it also might mean that there are like less than 40 fights, and there are some bosses that are 2 guys at the same time. Some part of the trailer, it definitely were 2 bosses a few times, so maybe it is fewer boss fights than 40 though. But it also might mean that they're more repetitive, yeah, that they're combining the power. This guy's clearly Kirby guy, yeah, so in you know. So this is a clearly a Kirby guy, right? Definitely the boss fight. Doesn't look like a hard boss, honestly. It's probably just learning how to maneuver around this, like, you know, the Kirby. This here reminds me of the classic old Snes game. So, but this game that are coming back to my head here is Mega Man X3, when you fight Bite and... What's the name again? Bite and Bolt, whatever the name are. Bite and Data. They have different names in English, but whatever. They're these 2 robot guys that are only in Mega Man X3. He does the exact same thing. He shoots this thing out against you, right? The 2 different things. They're flying in, like, you know, the center and they turn around. You have to then jump in the middle and around to the side, right? So this is very classic. Like, a lot of Snes bosses. An older similar game would have been like Contra, Super Contra, or Projector 3 then, right? It comes to Europe, where the third boss will do this flame thing and you have to throw around. There's bombs around you and you have to run to different corners. So I think this here, this is why I love Hollow Knight, right? Yeah, this is, to me, feels like good old gameplay, right? You know, good old gameplay, right? Because this here is like the pinnacle of Super Nintendo, like 16-bit boss fights, right? And I'm very excited for this game. It's fantastic. With this fight, I think this actually is the hardest fight, honestly. Yeah, because this is probably a boss fight against some kind of sword duel thing. This looks really, really hard. It kind of gives me maybe there's a purpose, right? Sword Saint Ishin, right? In Sekiro, called the flowers and so on. Yeah, so it's like, okay, interesting. But you know what I mean, right? So this game mixtures this like really old school classic like 2D combats, right? Maneuvering, okay, we got the big Kirby guy, we got the bomb things flying around to the right, we got the twin bug guy, so on. So we have a lot of these things happening. Then we have this guy, like a quick sword duel, so it has all the different kind of elements of a really good 2D game, right? So I think that these boss fights look really interesting because they seemingly have different kind of gameplays. They also, of course, have super duper size bosses as well, right? So, yeah, it has like all the different, like I say, mechanical styles you can have in a 2D game, right? But I think that if you look back to it, then many of these older games that were really great, they will only have one of these, like I would say, like 4 major categories. They will only have one of them, right? Maybe they will have 2, especially in the later SNES eras and early like 64 plus the ones or whatever. Maybe they will have more of them, but around that time they had like 2 usually, maybe only 1, right? But yeah, this game has like all 4 of them, so it has like different kind of, again, big boss, the moving thing, this thing, so on, right? So that's really great, and maybe there's more to get elements too, right? So we have that thing going in the game. This is also another gameplay mechanic, guys. This I don't like, though, honestly. I never really liked these stages, guys. Leave a comment below what do you guys feel, but when I developed it myself, I have definitely stayed away, though, from this kind of mechanic, right? So this is a classic mechanic, of course, where, you know, you have to climb really quickly because the lava is rising, and in some other games, maybe it's coming from over the top, right? You, again, probably saw this mostly in SNES, right? In the Genesis era. So you have it in, for example, some Mega Man games. You have it in, what's it called? Sonic, for example, right, with the water in the Mega Drive. I'm trying to pick some different consoles here, but you know what I mean. So you have this in different games, right? Yeah, like something rising. You have it in, not really in Earth for Jim, but Earth for Jim has like the, Oh god, that's a water stage. The water stage in that dream is slightly different because you have to maneuver this, I guess, submarine in the water, right? But it's similar because you have a very short time on you, and it's like the worst of all time. Yeah, I've beaten it several times as a kid. Don't get me wrong. I love it for him, but if you haven't played it, it's like one of the worst games ever at the same time because it has so many weird stages. I also have an escort mission for that. Yeah, Earth for Him actually I think is the first game ever, literally, to have an escort mission. We have to escort a dog, right? And a dog beats the crap out of you if you fail every time you die. It's the worst stage ever in all time. But anyway, I digress. My point is that honestly, like I said, the comment below, I actually hate these stages. I never liked them. I don't mind. It's not about difficulty, but I just feel it kind of stressing. And I can handle stress, right? But yeah, I just never liked them because I feel they're a little bit tacky because it's like one simple mistake can usually fall down. It depends on how they're designed. There definitely are worse and better examples. Earth for Him is a perfect example of how you should not do it, right? Because they changed the controller for the submarine, so it's even harder, and it's like a really flimsy controller, right? This game probably has a lot better responsive controllers. It's probably more fair. And that's probably actually the biggest kicker, right? If you're gonna have this like escaping the lava or the water or whatever, it has to have very, very, snappy, perfect controls that are really, really tight. It cannot be any kind of weird, clunky stuff that misfires them, so you get really irritated. And honestly, probably why I don't like stages, when thinking about it, because I grew up playing all these different games, right? And there were many of them that didn't have actually good controllers for this kind of moments. Another game similar is like, it's not a speed thing, but it's very similar. There's like Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel, which is like, I love the game, it's a great game, but it just fries me in that game, man. You should have fly in that game, the controller is insane and terrible. You have to jump up and like fly with Zero, like do this like, weird dive thing. You have to do it like 3 times in a row or something, and it's also time in some of the places. You're like, my god, this is so weird. It's like this very weird, flimsy, unique controller that only the game has, and it's just incredibly bonkers, that game. But eventually you learn it, then it flows perfectly. But it takes like hours just to master how you control that game, and it feels like it's made by an alien that's never met a human. It doesn't have like 5 fingers. Like, I don't have 7 fingers on one hand. Yeah, it's super weird. And it's no surprise we see this typical Metroidvania stuff, right? There are obviously gonna be shops. You have, of course, different life, right? You're gonna be able to upgrade your damage, your number of hits on you. I'm sure you can buy different weapons here, right, and so on. And you know how it goes, right? It's gonna be a mixture of like finding new items, unlocking new areas or new bosses, whatever, right? By example, oh no, I can freeze the enemies, I can climb on the enemy, right? And it's gonna be that, and a mixture. It's gonna be very likely that part of it is gonna be like, okay, you have to buy this item, right? Or to actually beat this boss, you need this weapon. You can purely only buy it, right? Which I don't mind. I like when the game can mixture that, if they make this perfectly, I would like to have options, right? So it's like, oh, you can buy 4 or 5 different weapons on this store, and you need all of them eventually, of course, to beat the game. And then the item you buy first time, we unlock one area, you know what I mean? So you as a player can have a choice. I would like the ice sword so I can get into that area. Stuff like that I like, yeah, when you have the options, right? And I'm sure this game has definitely different pathways and so on, right? In both probably in the stores, that's right, also in how you find item, and you can probably cheese your way up some areas or whatnot, right? Of course, you also have a massive map, right? You know how it goes. We're gonna fill this thing out. You kind of can see a lot of names here, of course, and different save points. And I have to say, this map here actually might be kind of spoily. Maybe we shouldn't look at it. Let's end the video now, guys. Wait a minute. You can see, oh, so if I move down there, there's a room down there, yeah. It's like, wait, let's move that map. Yeah, we're spoiled, right? No, but I think one of the best feelings, right, when you're playing this game is, of course, when you fill out the map, right? You're going around, you're seeing that, you know what, I missed like 10% of this red area. Or could it be a room over there? Oh, interesting, or, I don't see that corner thing being filled out. Maybe I can up there, right? So there is a huge, like, satisfying moments with, of course, Metroidvania games. And obviously, I hugely love, of course, in Sea of the Night. I won't spoil it, but yeah, when that map happens, the 100% plus in that map. As a side note, it's not a Metroidvania game, but I always liked, for example, in Donkey Kong Country 3, right? So in that game, if you find all the items and you pick up all the special like loot on every stage, so to speak, right? You get like a percentage meter in that game, but you get more percent than if you actually pick up each item, right? So eventually in the game, when you beat King K. Rool and so on, right? You get 100% like, okay, I beat every in the game. However, spoilers, you can actually find a secret part in that game, of course, I bring it up, which will give you a few more stages. I think it's so beautiful, because then the game goes to 103%. Yeah, it's just so silly. So you beat the last boss of the game, so it's like 100% completed, right? You know, like achievement, 100%, yeah. Then it's like, well, actually, there are a few more. Yeah, and now okay, 103%. So the game is, but I like that. You know, I think it's a really smart way to do it, right? Castlevania is the same thing, where the map in Castlevania, whatever, spoilers limited, the map, right, tells you that it's 100%, but it actually goes to 200%. Yeah, it's so stupid. But then, because the player is just like, wait a minute. But that really hides it from the gamer, right? Because otherwise, if you play a game, you're like, oh, I'm at 97%. Oh, I'm closing, it has to be one over there, you know what I mean? So, yeah, in Castlevania it's like a massive more part of the game, right? In Donkey Kong it's like just a few more stages, but it's like actually was 3 more over there. It's a great way to do it. I think that, I ended with that part, but I think that in the way games are done now, right? With all the achievement hunting and all the trophies, right? I think it kind of ruin it because, yeah, I mean, sure, a lot of games you can hide trophies, right? But it does feel a little bit just like, oh, 100% this thing or whatever. But back in the days, you didn't get trophies, but you wanted to have that, you know, the 100% completion, right? You know, everything else in between didn't really matter. And then you have these like really weird, funny ways to trick the player. Right? Well, actually, what about this thing? So yeah, that was great. Anyway, guys, please subscribe and have a great day.